I'm Eliza Wood, this is my channel, and let's talk about underwear. Not like the modern kind of underwear. I'm talking Edwardian girls kind of undergarments. So that would be like a chemise and a pair of bloomers, or a pair of combinations, which is pretty much a romper. This layer would be used as an against the skin layer that would save the skin from things like your stays, and also would save the outer garments from the oils and dirt that would get on it from your skin. And for once, I'm filming this outside of my room where I normally film it, so we'll be having some cat visitors while we go. Now, I should also mention that this was originally planned to be part of a bigger project that didn't come to fruition. So if you hear me mention Kiki or anything like that, it's in reference to further projects that aren't happening, and that will be mentioned a couple of times in the decision-making processes. Alright, so I look horrible right now because I was just out gardening, so my face is all red, but I wanted to talk about the plans for the chemise before I forget. So I might refilm this, but you never know. Might as well do it now before I forget. The plan for the chemise is to use the pattern from the Manual of Needlework and Cutting Out, specially adapted for teachers of sewing, students, and pupil teachers. It is a book that has been referenced many times on YouTube. Especially, I specifically found it from Bernadette Banner when she was making a pair of combinations. Since it was originally my plan to make a pair of combinations, that was the book that I pulled up, but I later decided that I was going to make a chemise and bloomers pair instead of a connected, almost like a romper. Now, if you watched one of my recent videos, the Nightcore video, I haven't actually titled it yet, so I don't know what it's titled, but it will also be linked in the description below if you'd like to see it. I used the same pattern in order to make the chainmail shirt thing. Now, I wound up not quite following the pattern. The main reason is because I found that where the chemise was having me take in for the waist was gonna be way too high. It wanted me to do it at like 14 inches, I believe. However, just taking a little tape measure from my shoulder down to just hanging it over my bust and finding where it would be down, it's about 17 inches. So I will be adding a little bit of extra length that the pattern did not call for, which is not surprising. For a bigger bust, you're gonna have to do that. Other than that, the only thing I need to do is change the proportions, which was gonna have to happen anyway because my pattern, I believe, if I went with the actual pattern, was gonna be 42 inches long by 44.5 inches long by 39 inches wide. And by that, I mean the front part. So in total, it would have been almost 80 inches wide. So I don't have to worry about it being too small or anything like that. Of course, it's going to be gathered down to the correct neckline. But I'm gonna make mine shorter because I don't actually want it to go to the mid-calf, which is where a chemise would normally go to, because of course I want to be able to tuck it into my bloomers, and the less I have to do that with, the better. So I am actually going to make mine go to about mid-calf. Do you have to be making all that noise back there? The babies have zoomies right now. So I'm sitting here struggling to make decisions. I'm trying to use things that I already have in my stash, which includes some muslin that I have. This muslin is bleach white. I'm okay with that. I would prefer more of this color, which is the muslin that I used to make my last project, which is Galadriel's riding coat. It's a much more, it's not really colored, it's just kind of an off-white looking thing as compared to this very bright white. So I would prefer this color. I do not have any more of this color. I used it all up when making Arwen's riding coat. I only have this color. So I was looking for what kind of lace that I have to make an Edwardian chemise. I could make a very simple chemise, something without any lace or anything like that, but that's just too simple for me and I don't want that. So I have gone through the entirety of my house and tried to find all of the lace that I own. And I have options, like I have this one, if you remember from the Cinderella Disney Bound. There I have this one right here, which is very pretty. It's iridescent. However, it has, because of the iridescence, it has a bit of a blue tint. And I think the iridescence would be good for a magical feel, but the colors that Kiki has is white, red, and black. There's no light blue in it, so I'm kind of hesitant to use this blue tinted lace. The other things I have is like this would be very pretty, and I actually really like this option. But I do not have a lot of it. I have maybe a yard and a half, it looks like. And I don't think that would be enough. It might be enough for like the neckline, but it wouldn't be enough for the neckline and the sleeves. Then I have this one, which is very simple, but it's very thin. So it's really just something that I could use probably for insertion lace. Let's see if I can't get the camera to focus on it. Here you go. That I could use for insertion lace, but I don't think it's enough. Like, it's not bold enough. I could use it for like slight details, maybe around the waistband or around the bottom hem or something like that. I have this one right here, which is very detailed. It's very pretty. It's actually got a bit of a 3D look to it. However, again, I only have about a yard and maybe 3/4. So for this one, I was thinking maybe about having it be the kind of piece that goes here up and down all the way throughout, but it doesn't really match with any of the other laces that I have. And looking at the reference pretty much uses the same lace throughout the entire piece. Those are all my white options, and I'm not really happy with any of them. However, I have this option right here, which is very pretty and very big, so I could use it for both the inner detail, the bust detail, as well as the lace detail that goes around the edges. And I have this, which apparently needs to be rewound. Which could be used again as a detail around like the hem and stuff like that. However, both of these are an off-white color. So if you look at them compared to my white fabric, okay, it's hard to see in this lighting, but the flowers have a bit of a yellow tint to them, which hard to see in this lighting, but against this bright white fabric, it sticks out. So I don't know that I want to use this off-white kind of lace if I have a bright white muslin. So what I'm trying to decide right now is if I want to use the white lace that I have over here that I've just finished showing. Would you stop messing with that? Yes, I'm talking to you. What? You were being loud and I was trying to film. So I'm trying to decide if I want to use this off-white lace, which is very pretty and also I think kind of vintage. I got it from my mom, so I believe it might be vintage. I think she told me it was vintage. Or if I want to just use the ones I already have that are white and would fit better with... I did wind up going to the store and I bought 2 new things of lace ribbon, one of which was a flowery kind of ribbon, and the other of which I thought would be good to use as... I forgot what it's called, but it's the type of ribbon that you can lace. It's a type of lace that you can thread a ribbon through, which will be used as my gathering sections. First, I need to draft my pattern. Using the grid from the book and a lot of proportion calculations, this is actually a relatively simple project for the chemise. I even wound up drawing it straight on the fabric and cutting it out because I honestly don't care about this fabric and I have enough to try again if I have to. But if this is a better fabric, I probably would not recommend drawing straight on the fabric. Now, the one thing I was never able to figure out on this particular book is if it came with the seam allowances already in the pattern or if it was something that you were supposed to add seam allowances onto. It probably says somewhere in the book, but I didn't read it, so I have no idea. I wound up going with the just assuming that it was already in the pattern and working with that. Even if it's not already in the pattern, there's enough ease in the pattern that if I take out some for the seam allowances, it's not going to make that big of a deal. I decided to do a French seam, which means I sewed the fabric first with the wrong sides together at about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Then I turned it and sewed it again with the right sides together at about 3/8 of an inch from an edge. This encloses the edges and makes it so that I won't have to turn them under later. For an undergarment like this, you would have had to do one or the other because it would be washed often, which would quickly fray the edges. Though I should mention that the French seams did make the insertion lace a tad bit harder. For the insertion lace, I sewed a long stitch where I marked the waistline to be. This will be a gathering stitch since the lace will only be half the length of my waist, where the pattern calls for the dress to be larger than that. I pinned the lace to my dress, doing my best to make sure that the gathers will be even and that the waistline is at the center of the ribbon. Then I felled the lace into place. I prefer to attach lace by hand because it makes it a lot easier to do invisible stitching than if I were to just go with the sewing machine. I probably could have done the sewing machine to save time, but I never take that smart way out. Once the bottom of the lace is in place, I can go ahead and cut off the front panel. This is from the waistband up and from the outside of the bust to the other side of the bust. This is the section that I'm going to add the lace stripes as they are on the reference photo. Unfortunately, though I measured the panels several times before cutting the stripes, they are actually not evenly spread out. Not something that's really noticeable, but I know. Then I felled the ribbons into place, folded the edges over, and did another felling pass just to make sure the edges were held down. Then another gathering row around the bottom to reattach it to the waistband. But that ended up snapping, so I wound up winging it. I still did my best to make sure the fabric was evenly gathered to the length of the waistband, but the gathers weren't nearly as neat as they were on the bottom portion. And while we're adding some lace anyway, I added some of those iridescent ruffles to both the armhole and the hem of the chemise. I did this with the same French seam as before, but I kind of feel like it made those seams a little too bulky and probably wouldn't do it again, especially around the armholes. Then just a last bit of detail with a couple more lace ribbons, a couple inches from the bottom of the dress. Apparently I only filmed me marking where this lace was supposed to go, but I just felled that lace in place just like all the others. Alright, so I'm almost done with that chemise. I just have to put the neckline on and then I can do the bloomers. I'm already a third of the way through October and I'm supposed to be having this this, 'This, 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 ' the 31st, so I'm probably going to have to simplify all of my plans for the rest of the stuff. But for now, chemise is almost done. The bloomers are gonna be, hopefully, crossing my fingers, very quick. And then I can work on the next project. So, plan for today, finish the chemise, and hopefully mock up the bloomers. To do the collar, I need to first even up my neckline since all this lace threw everything out of place. Then I decided to make my life easy and just add some white bias tape around the collar, which will also act as a channel for the gathering string that a lady would use to properly fit the top of the garment when worn. This time I'll be smart and add some hand-sewn grommets to the middle from the bias tape before hand felling it down with the rope already encased inside. This will make my life so much easier. At this point, I have either stopped filming or have lost what I did film because I can't find anything else for the chemise or in fact the bloomers. But that's okay because the chemise is almost done. All I did was cut some strategic locations in the lace for the gathering section around the waistband, and then I threaded a red velvet ribbon into that lace so that I could gather that down to better fit my waist. As for the bloomers, I have nothing in the way of film for them. I'm pretty sure I filmed something, but I can't find any of it. So I'm just gonna go through what I did and show you pictures of the whole process. I'm sorry I stopped petting you. I have to look at the camera now. What did you get on your back? I originally planned on using the same book to make the bloomers as I did with the chemise, but I have actually made a pair of bloomers from that book before, and the proportion charts work for the chemises, but there is no, as far as I can tell, real proportion chart for the bloomers, so I was never able to really figure out how to do the proportions on the bloomers using their charts. So I decided to save time and frustration for the sake of my brain that I would just use a modern pattern and kind of alter it as best as I could to match what was in the book. So I found a YouTube tutorial on how to draft a pair of elastic shorts. I will of course link that down below, as well as any other thing that I'm talking about. I figured the elastic shorts would be good because that'll give me some extra room, which I will gather down with a ribbon that I don't have to do a modern closure on. Once I have drawn out the shorts, the elastic shorts, onto paper, I did not do this one straight onto the fabric, I did it on some paper. I can then cut some slashes in it as you would when trying to alter a sleeve pattern, like a regular sleeve pattern, into a bell-shaped sleeve pattern. You would take a vertical slash from the bottom to the top, but not fully to the top. You want to leave a tiny, tiny, tiny bit still connected at the top, so that way you can open up and it'll give you more at the bottom, but still keep the top relatively small. Since I still wanted it to look like the pattern from the book, I wound up having the front end very small opening, like I didn't open it very much at the front, but at the back end I wound up opening it up a lot more because the waistband in the pattern is pretty straight in the beginning, but then it comes into a curve at the end. This does make one difference compared to the book though, in that the pant legs are straight up and down in the book, but in my pattern the pant legs, because I had opened it up rather than just leaving it and having a curved waistband, my legs were, one side was diagonal whereas the other side was straight. It was also at this point that I altered the pattern to most modern patterns. The crotch seam for both the front and the back is a concave curve, but for the pattern in the book, the back crotch seam is actually a convex shape, which leaves a little bit of extra fabric in the back. I'm not really sure if having all of the extra space at the bottom with the diagonal seam is gonna make much of a difference, but I was hoping for more of a poofy bottom anyway, so it's not exactly as it would have been historically, but it is closer to what I was hoping for, because I was kind of hoping for what you would think of as normal bloomers, as kind of like a pillowy shape, whereas historically it was more of a flowy shape. Once again, I decided just to do the French seam for sewing the pieces together. It's just the 4 pieces, so it was relatively easy. I'm not really sure though if you're supposed to do the crotch seam first or the legs first, but it doesn't matter. As long as you leave a couple inches at the front so that you can open up the pants to be able to put them on and off. Now, if you're doing this historically, I believe, I'm not sure if it's the case for all bloomers, but I had seen that at least in the Victorian times, the bloomers would be left open at the back. There would be pretty much all the way down the crotch at the back. They would be entirely left open, so that way a lady could go to the bathroom without having to take off her undergarments, because to reach under your skirt would be so not okay. I, however, was not going to be wearing this with a long skirt. I had intended on wearing it with a skirt that was above the knee. So I did not feel comfortable with a big hole in the back of my bloomers, so I decided just to leave the front open a little bit, like you would with a normal pair of pants, to be able to put it on and off. Now that it's all sewn together, I'm going to add in some insertion lace. I just use the same lace as I did on the waistband of the chemise, and I added that around the leg of the pant, just the bottom leg, about an inch above the bottom, and around the waistband, once again just an inch below the waistband, just so that I had a lace in there that I could thread a ribbon through and gather down to the correct shape. At the waistband, this would help me keep the pants on, of course, and at the legs, it would hopefully, my hope was, it would make the legs more poofy like the modern bloomers that I was actually going for. Yes, I realized that if I wanted modern bloomers, I should have made modern bloomers, but no, I have to make my life complicated. Then last but not least, I also did a rolled hem around the waistband. And there are some bloomers. I woke up like this. Not really. I didn't do a lot of makeup because I wanted to make it look like I had woken up like this, but I don't think I managed that. I think I am very obviously wearing makeup, but that's okay, because I also have to go to work out right after this. I'm like trying to do this real quick so I can get ready for work so I can leave. But this is the final product. I am wearing a tank top underneath this chemise, which you would normally have to do, but because of the lace paneling on this guy, it would have been indecent of me to not wear something underneath it while I was showing it on YouTube. Now for pros and cons, I think that I used the wrong kind of fabric. I know that they say that they use cotton as one of the chemises. I think though that their cotton was a little less stiff. In the reveal you might have noticed the sides of the skirt flare out because the front and back are both trying to keep the like flat shape. They aren't draping like I would think a normal chemise would do. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it is something that I would prefer to fix in the future, because I don't really particularly like the flaring of the skirt. But it is what it is. So I think I used the wrong kind of cotton, which is not really surprising because at my fabric store, which is Joann's, the only kind of cotton they really have that isn't super expensive is more for making quilts and things. So it's supposed to be stiffer anyway. And even the Kona cotton that is used for the mock-ups is still in the quilting section. So I do think it is a stiffer cotton than what would be used on the chemises. I do really like the shoulder frills here. I didn't know if I'd like the blue iridescent, but I don't think it's really as noticeable that it's blue. So I like the iridescent. It gives that little bit of witchy flair, even though it doesn't actually, even though we aren't actually making it into a witch at this point. But that was the whole thing that I wanted, was the witchy flair. The only thing is, because of the French seam, it doesn't really want to like sit flat, and it is really thick. So I think probably in the future, if I were to add frills like this, I would not do a French seam, even if the rest of the dress is a French seam. I have the same problem with the skirt, the hem of the skirt, where I put a French seam to attach the lace at the hem as well. So it keeps wanting to flip upwards instead of just staying down, because the frills are not heavy enough to keep the fabric from wanting to kind of flip upward. I would have liked to put the like pin tuck details in the panels like there were on the reference material, but I found that because of the lace I chose, let's see if I can back up and show you, because of the lace I chose and how big it is, it's almost big as, if not bigger than, the panels that were the cotton. So I didn't want to pin tuck the cotton and make it even smaller, because then I'd pretty much just have a lace top with a little bit of cotton, and that wasn't what I wanted. So I wound up not pin tucking the top, and I wound up also dropping some of the other details from the reference, which actually makes sense because the chemise that I was referencing was a wedding chemise, which was probably like their fancy undergarments that they only wore for the fancy things that they did, like their wedding, which is why it survived, because most chemises would not have survived because they were well worn. I do really like that I can make it fit to my body. I do think the bust is a little loose. I'm not sure if that's because it's supposed to be loose, or if it's because the loss of the pin tucks means that I added a whole bunch of fabric but didn't lose the fabric in the pin tucks that the chemise would have done in the original pattern. But I don't think it's bad. It's just, it makes it a little bit more poofy than probably I would have liked. The back is kind of ugly, but it's very simple, and that's, I think, how it would have been. I couldn't see the back of the reference. They only showed a picture of the front, and most extant references only show pictures of the front of the garment, but I doubt they did much with the back. So I was just like, you know what, it's just the back. I'm just gonna like not do anything with it. Interestingly enough, even though I've got this gather around the waist, it's only around the front. So the back still kind of falls flat. And then as for the shorts, I'm getting ready to show you, but I have to sit up so you won't be able to see my face. I am really happy with them. I feel like they're gathering weirdly in the crotch area. I'm not sure if that's how it would have been historically, or if that's because I did the pants wrong. The one thing I will say is that the waistband, because it's curved, I always feel like I'm pulling it up in the sides. Like, they always feel like they're falling down, and I'm not sure if that's, like, am I putting it in the wrong spot? Like, what is going on here? So I'm not sure how the curved waistband works. But I was really happy with the poofiness of the legs. It looks very like the modern kind of bloomers that I was looking for. I would have liked a little bit more volume in the shorts, but I think if I were to do that, I should have added more volume in the beginning. And then some bloomers also add lace on top, which is what I was originally planning on doing, frills of lace on top just to give that extra bit of poof. But I think that those are all modern changes, so I know that I don't do historically accurate. I do not claim it because I'm pretty sure that I do things wrong all the time, but I like to do historical reference so that I can get as close to the historical accuracy as I can get without doing too much research into it. And honestly, that's kind of an excuse because also I just ran out of time. I probably would have added in the frills if I had enough time. But I am really happy with it. This is the first time I think that the chemise and bloomers combination, because I've made chemises a few times, but I think this is the first time that I've been like really happy with the outcome. I think it looks really nice. Unfortunately, the fabric choice was wrong. I think, not really sure, but I'm pretty sure the fabric choice was wrong, but it's just what I had. So I'm really proud of myself for actually using what I had in stock, because I'm really bad about that. I almost never actually use what I have in stock. I just go out and buy the new thing and I'm like, oh, I have this fabric that would have been perfect for this project. So I was really proud of myself to have actually done that. But if you like this video and you want to see any of my future projects, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you want to correct any of my inaccuracies, please go ahead and comment down below. I'm always happy to hear from all y'all, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye!